some people joining us early.
Yes.
People joining us early.
Yes.
I just heard myself. Joining us
Yeah, I had YouTube on.
early. Okay. That was the delay then. Rena and Tish, thanks for joining us if you can hear me.
We can hear you. I have Mitch here with me as well.
Oh, okay. Hello. Thanks for joining. And you are located where?
I'm in Columbus and Mitch is normally out of our Norfolk office.
Okay. I see exciting news. You have a new economic developer in Norfolk as of this morning.
I haven't heard that news.
Oh, yeah. News Channel Nebraska, I think. Melissa Garcia was named the new economic developer in Norfolk.
Oh,
That was out this morning. Yeah, we are just getting set up. So if you have comments or thoughts or chat, feel free.
I made
Hi,
it
Jude. You're even early.
just a couple of minutes. I shut my door because I'm afraid if I don't, I would get hung up.
Yes,
Too many people in and out of my world.
I understand. So no, thanks for letting us know you've arrived, and
Yep.
so we'll be good. So you'll start to see people joining. So
Okay.
Lori, can you hear me? It's Bev Hansen.
hey, Bev, how are you?
Great. I'm signing in, but I've got 2 phone calls I need to return. But I'll go ahead and stay signed in. Is that okay?
Oh, that's wonderful. We just appreciate you joining us. How are things in Bertrand?
Good.
Nice. Yeah, no, thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
Mhm.
I'll catch you in a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Howard, if you're ready, could throw up the slide, the beginning slide. That's not Roger. How are you, Kelvin?
good. I'm working on it, Lori.
You're fine. You can be Roger if you want.
As amazing as the man is, I think there's already one in here, so I want
Okay,
to
sounds
make
good.
sure you
Yeah,
can distinguish.
yeah. We were just talking about the news in Norfolk today, so yeah, starting to see people joining us. So Zach and Amanda, welcome. Sarah, hello. So
Hello. Hello.
how are things?
Good.
Looks
I'm
like you're
driving, so
I was gonna say it looks like you're traveling, Sarah.
I am. Yes.
We have a good number of people registered for today, so we will give them obviously a few more minutes to join us. Howard, everything okay? Need anything?
I think I'm okay. I'm trying to figure out how to like get to YouTube on my phone so I could track the number of YouTube viewers.
Okay. I'm afraid I'm not much help with that.
And I remember Shuri saying it was a certain way, and I don't remember that certain way. So that would be a relatively minor thing because we don't usually have a lot of, I think the most I've been aware of is like three, and I was one of the three. And last
Okay.
time I was the only one.
Okay. Yeah, we do stream to our YouTube channel, so we discovered that during COVID that we were exceeding our Zoom limits, so we began doing this also to YouTube. So welcome to all of you that are joining us. So you might see an unfamiliar face that isn't Sherry Albert. Howard is filling in for Sherry the next couple months, doing all the logistics and the important work behind the scenes for us. So say hello to Howard, or I didn't even think of a question for today. So if you have anything you want to share as we lead up to 2 o'clock, feel free to open your microphone or put something in the chat box. Kids are back to school. Fall sports are getting underway. Anything you want to share? Welcome to those who are joining us. Thanks for being here. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. Howard, do you want to let me know when you're ready to go as well?
Absolutely. Hold on for just a second. We'll close the door.
Okay. See some new and familiar faces, so we'll give people just a couple more minutes. Nobody has anything they want to share before we begin? Oh, Zach and his wife are starting a coffee trailer business in Norfolk. Cool. Name of the business, Zach? You want some promotion here? Bork and Brood. Okay. How fun. Check out Zach's new business when you're in Norfolk. I lived there for about 4 years, and I'm a Norfolk person. A lot of people say Norfolk, so if I'm pronouncing it wrong, forgive me. Getting some likes and reactions there, Zach. Okay, we'll wait one more minute. In our age of Zoom, we can join at 2 o'clock and still be there. Okay, Paula says, oh, her youngest will be on NET on the 24th, and then I lost it. My apologies. At 8 p.m. for the, okay. Got to move this so I can read it. Okay. Paula's youngest will be on NET on August 24th at 8 p.m. on their JAM program with Josh Hoyer's Colossal 4. How cool, Paula. Thanks for sharing. Everybody set your alarms for that program. That's Monday night, if I count right.
Yes, watch for me because I'm going to be out of town at a conference.
Oh, well, I get to be with 400 of my closest friends on Saturday night. So me as an introvert, we're looking forward to that so much.
I feel your pain.
I thought it was bad when it was 200, and then I was told yesterday that there's been 400. So should be fun. So anyway, well, I do hear a lot of people joining us, but it is time. I'd like to get started so we can honor not only our speakers' time, but yours as well. So let me just say welcome and thank you. And Howard, I forgot to ask, are you ready to go?
I am ready.
Okay, great. So welcome and thank you to all of you for joining us here today on the August edition of our HomeNE Learning Network. You probably all know me, but I know we do have a few new registrations this month. So my name is Lori Ferguson. I'm with South Central Economic Development District, and assisting me today, it is not Sherry Alper. That's a familiar name and face that you have seen as you've joined us over the years. Howard Wong has been with us just about a year, and he is filling in for Sherry, doing the heavy lifting of logistics. So if something goes wrong, I'm clueless, and Howard will be the one rescuing us today. So thank you for joining us. We are located in Holdridge, and we are one of 8 development districts. And the HomeNE Learning Network is something that we started almost 9 years ago now. It's hard to believe, with a learning journey. In December of 2017, we took a group of people to the communities of Stewart and Central City. And then in February of 2018, we started this feature of once a month Learning Network webinars. So if you've been with us for all 90 plus webinars now, or if you're just joining us for the first time, thank you for making this a priority in your day. So our goal with the HomeNE Learning Network is to create an environment where you can learn and apply what you learn from other communities, from our speakers, and then just to begin to build and make connections. Maybe what you hear from Judy today doesn't especially apply or specifically apply in totality to your situation, but maybe you can find something that you might say, what if we tried this in our own community? So feel free to reach out. I see a lot of you starting to join us. Take a look around our virtual room and see some names, and then reach out and get acquainted with them and talk about their housing journey and challenges as well. So thank you for being here once again to all of you. So today's speaker is Judy Clark. She is the development director for the city of North Platte, and I can't tell you how thrilled I was when she agreed to be our presenter today. I think I was like jumping up and down internally when she said that, so that she would be willing to speak today. So thankfully we were just on a virtual and not physically in the same room, because I was pretty excited. So we know that tax increment financing is a big deal across the state of Nebraska. So I'm just really excited to hear what she's going to share with all of us today. We have over 75 people registered for today, so that just confirms that TIF and the topic of micro TIF are really of interest to all of you. So welcome, Judy. I just want to say thank you again and give you a shout out for being willing to be here. Thank you for your willingness and your availability to speak on HomeNE. So, but before we get underway, would you just kind of step aside and share a little bit about you, maybe personally as well as professionally, and then we'll get started.
Well, I wasn't prepared for the personally stuff, but anyway, Judy Clark. I am the director of development for the city of North Platte, and also they apparently thought I had a lot of free time. So years ago, the city of North Platte is in an interlocal agreement with Lincoln County. So I also serve as the county planning and zoning administrator. So I wear 2 hats in my realm of work. And a little thing personal about me, my thought is 28 years ago, I would have never envisioned myself being where I'm at. City government, county government was like the class I hated most in high school. So, but lo and behold, here I am. I'm married and I have 3 boys that are now young adults. So we're kind of experiencing a new threshold of parenthood, but that's it's kind of a fun time. So um, I don't know. There's not a lot about me. I work and family, and that's pretty much about it. Not that
Well,
exciting, but that's okay.
I enjoy your genuineness as an individual, and I've enjoyed getting to know you through this process. So, with that, we'll go ahead and advance to the next slide and let Judy begin her presentation, Howard.
Okay, microTIF. So just a little bit about microTIF. I'm not going to claim to be the absolute expert. I'm not quite sure why they reached out to me, but probably because North Platte has done about 18 of these projects, and we were probably one of the first communities in Nebraska to try it out. A little bit of history. Mike Groney, microTIF was kind of the brainchild of Mike Groney. He was a state senator back in like 2014, something like that. And he never really liked TIF at all because your tax increment financing, it was always going to the big corporations. The big guys were getting wealthy off of it, is at least what his interpretation was. And so this was kind of his brainchild. It was crafted by other senators, I'm sure, but it was kind of his brainchild. And so him being from our area, the city of North Platte thought, you know what, we need to try and help get a win here with microTIF. And honestly, I think it's a really incredible program. So just jumping into microTIF, just a little bit about it. It follows Nebraska Community Development Law, and it's for repair, rehabilitation, or replacement, or redevelopment. And typically the projects that fall under microTIF are those that just aren't large enough to qualify for TIF. You can go to the next slide. And to be TIF eligible, so there is some criteria, and this has recently changed. So this last legislation passed, I believe it was LB 1114, and it changed some things with the larger TIF, and it also changed with microTIF. And one of the things that changed is it's now 25 years old to be a qualification. It used to be 60 years old. So this really opens up a lot of other things that are involved. But basically, to be microTIF eligible, the redevelopment includes only one project. It involves repair, rehabilitation, replacement of an existing structure that had been in the corporate limits of the city. This is a new one too, extraterritorial jurisdiction, and is located in an area that's blighted and substandard. So you can be in the corporate limits, or now with the new provisions through the state statutes, you can actually be in your ETJ. Redevelopment of a vacant or platted lot that is located again within a blighted and substandard district. And again, in the city limits or the city's extraterritorial jurisdiction. Next slide. Redevelopment project is located in a county of a population less than 100,000 inhabitants. So again, this is kind of targeted towards your smaller communities. Next slide. And then it has to meet this threshold. So this is where you get into the criteria of it's not large enough for a full-fledged TIF project, but it would fall under this. $350,000 for a project involving single family, 1.5 million for the project involving multifamily, residential, or commercial, or 10 million for a project involving revitalization of a structure that's in a National Register of Historic Places. The thing here is the assessed value. So that doesn't mean you're building a house for 350,000. It means the assessed value once it's completed cannot be over that $350,000 threshold. So those are important things to kind of remember. Next slide. So this is just a little copy of the city of North Platte, the zoning map, and the yellow places. And this is an older zoning map. I probably should have, or an older, sorry, saying zoning, redevelopment map. So these are the areas in North Platte that are declared as blighted and substandard. Blighted and substandard, a lot of these areas were declared blighted and substandard under the old redevelopment law. So there, if you look at North Platte and you go kind of on the north side of North Platte where those orange areas are at, those are where a lot of our older structures are, which is, when the town was originally developed, but yet they had never quite met that threshold to being declared blighted and substandard. So we have a lot of areas of North Platte that would actually qualify for TIF, except for the fact that they're not in a blighted and substandard area. But we usually keep a map like that. This map has changed a little bit because some other regulations that have came out or requirements that have came out is you have the ability now also to declare areas as extreme blight. And so a few of our areas now are considered extreme blight also. Next slide. Okay, so this is where it gets a little interesting with the city of North Platte. So I asked a number of attorneys, a number of legislators, state legislators, and I asked them about declaring an area as blighted and substandard without being a huge area. Instead of taking, 10 or 15 acres and doing a full blight study and all of those things, I asked them if you could declare 3 or 4 blocks or a block or maybe just a couple of lots. And I could never really get a really strong answer. So the city of North Platte got a little bit creative and we came up with, let's do what we're going to call a microblight. Microblight was my brainchild. I invented that word, I think, because I've never heard of it before. But what we have done on 4 of our projects is we have actually done a microblight study where we've taken just a few lots or a couple of lots or maybe a block and declared those blighted and substandard. Now, we thought if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right, and we're going to follow the same exact standards that a full blight study would do. And so it follows the same process. You have to get referral from council to the planning commission to have an area studied. You hold a public hearing at the planning commission to get a referral to council. You hold the council public hearing. Next slide. Same type of thing that you would do with a normal blight and substandard study. Okay. This is a form. So the forms and applications that we use. So this little form right here. So when MicroTIF first came out, the state issued some forms and some regulations that, some of the instructions that went along with the form. But if you look at this form, and you probably can't see it very well on this slide, but this form is kind of interesting to me, and this happened to me. So I'm going to give you a little true story here. So the first line of that has like the project name, or the county name, the city. Those are the first 2 boxes. The second one is the redeveloper or the owner. And then it has the project name, the parcel number, and then the application date. Nowhere on this form is there an address for the redeveloper. Is there a phone number for the redeveloper or an email? There's absolutely nothing usable on this form so that I can contact this individual. So I had someone, and I'm going to tell you this little story. I had someone, when we first initially started this, he was probably my 3rd applicant. And he was an out-of-town property owner, owned some property in North Platte. He wanted to do a microTIF project because he was going to make a rental out of this home that he owned. So he sent me in this application. And he mailed it through snail mail. I got this application, I took a look at it, and of course, there were things wrong with it. He didn't fill it out appropriately, right? I had no way of contacting that person. No email, no phone number. All I had was his name. And I didn't even have his name because he was doing it under a corporation. So it was like Sandridge LLC. And so luckily, I didn't throw away the envelope and I had a mailing address so that I could be in contact with this person. So shortly after that, I sat down with the city attorney and I said, this form is unusable. I can't use it. Now, does it have the pertinent information as far as, you know, what are you doing? What's your project going to be? What's your assessed value going to be when you're done? How much money do you think it's going to cost you? It has that, but it really has nothing else on there that's usable for me. So the city came up with their own application. If you go to the next application. This is our supplemental form. It's just a one pager. And of course, the first thing I saw is we got the property's owner's name, the mailing address, contact phone number, email address, and then which way they prefer to be contacted, which is awesome. And then we have, you know, is this property designated as blighted and substandard? And then down below are the lines where we want to know a summary of their project. So on that first state form, it has, you know, what's the summary of your project? What are you proposing? Well, in that state form, I got a rental house. Okay, well, that's great, but what are you going to be doing with it? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to rehab it? Are you going to demolish it and start over? That little one box on the state form just didn't work. And then also at the bottom of my form that I created, we asked them to list what the expenses were going to be in itemized form. Because the thing with micro TIF that you have to remember is they have to be TIF eligible expenses. So a TIF eligible expense isn't something like a refrigerator. I'm going to buy a new refrigerator and put it in my rental unit. That's not a TIF eligible expense because it's something that will go away. And so you have to be a little bit careful with that. And the way that the state form was, it really didn't have you list an itemized list of expenses. So what I have people do when they apply for micro TIF is fill out that state form, but I also have them fill out this supplemental form so that we can get essentially all of the information that we need. Next slide. So here is a form with our micro blight designation. So we had an old motel in North Platte that wanted to do this micro TIF project. And we thought this project was going to be absolutely great. And so we said, sure, we'd love to have you do it, but the problem is you're not blighted and substandard. So they were an entire block. So it was a whole city block. And so what we did was also came up with a form that was a blight study, essentially. So what I do is I have them, and this form is very entailed, and I sat down with the city attorney and talked to him quite a bit about how to go through and be able to blight something without me spending, you know, 3 months trying to do a blight study. So we essentially make the applicant go through the blight study and essentially do the blight study, and then of course we review it to make sure everything fits. But in this, again, it would be the same thing that a consultant would do to do a blight study on a very large area. So this is just page 1. And then if you go on to the next slide, all of these things where it says select all that apply to a study area, those are all of the standards that are in a blight and substandard study in state statute. And so they have to check all the boxes that they think apply. The next page is the same thing for being blighted, for being substandard. Next slide, please. It continues on and it goes through all the criteria for declaring an area blighted and substandard. Next slide. And on this very last page of the micro blight application, I have required attachments. And what I had them do on there is the deed to the property, pictures of the existing property that show all of the conditions, and they have to be date stamped. Pictures of the conditions of the roads that are surrounding the property, documentation that proves the age of the structure, everything like that. And then what I do is I end up taking all of that information. If it's complete, I will take all of that information and put it into a blight study for that small parcel or few parcels that we're going to declare blighted and substandard. And then I take it through the typical approval process. Next slide. Okay, and here I'm very bad about taking any pictures, but here's a picture of one of the projects that was done in North Platte. This is a building that I was told before I was born was a grocery store. And so this grocery store had a lot of storage areas and, it's just pretty much a big warehouse. The bottom floor where you see that little shade over the bottom window, that was an office, little bit of an office space at the time. So what they did was they applied for microTIF. This one was already blighted and substandard in a blighted and substandard area. They applied for microTIF and they turned this building into a multi-use. So we have commercial on the bottom and we have residential upstairs. They didn't change much of the building. It was more interior remodel than anything. They did do a little bit to the outside. Next slide. And here's what the apartments look like on the inside. And so it was an incredible reuse. It was a commercial and residential at the same time. And it turned out to be a really cool project. The thing about microTIF, I think when it was envisioned, it was going to be a one-page form that somebody could fill out. They could go to city council, they could get their blessing, and then they could move on with their project. Well, it turns out that microTIF is a little bit more complicated than that. The forms are a lot easier and a lot less cost intensive up front. But we don't go through the bonding. The city doesn't have to say, yeah, we're going to bond so much money because this works. And the way I try to explain it to applicants is it's a tax rebate. So essentially, you come in, you apply for your microTIF, you get approved, and then you go do your project. And you go do your project by getting a loan from the bank, or you have the money yourself to do your project. And then when your project's completed and your tax assessment goes up, if your taxes at the time that you started were $1,000, and then your project now is done and completed, and now you're paying $3,000 for taxes, every year that you pay that $3,000, you're going to get a $2,000 check back. People have gotten really creative with that. We've had one individual that uses that money and assigned the rebate to his bank to make a payment on his loan. And microTIF also changed a little bit to where you could be a developer and you can either leave that microTIF to the new property owner that you sell your property to, or you can retain that microTIF for yourself. So that microTIF money that comes back, that tax money that comes back, can either come back to you or the current property owner. So there have been a couple of them that have done that where they've sold the property, but they retained the TIF payment. And so, but they're very, very useful tools. The 16 projects that we have awarded, 18 of them have been completed, or 16 that we awarded, 14 has been completed. 2 of those just didn't finish the project. But one of the things that I run into probably the most frequently is people not understanding. I had one gentleman that filled out his paperwork. I thought I explained the process to him really well. And he came in and asked when he received the money. And I said, well, what money are you talking about? And he said, well, I applied for a loan. And I was like, no, that's not what this is. You have to think of it as more of like a rebate check that you're going to get in the mail once a year for 15 years. So that's probably one of the biggest hurdles. The other thing is the change in assessed value. Depending on what people do, they might not see much of a benefit. I had one gentleman that came in and said, I want to do micro TIF because I want to rewire my entire house. Well, rewiring his house wasn't going to give him any assessed value increase. So, your best projects are the ones that rehab a structure into a multi-use facility, or maybe a vacant lot where you're building a new home on it, or something that's really going to move that assessed value up a little bit. But we've had some where there's a gentleman that I think gets $50 back every year and he's just tickled pink. So it works in all different kinds of ways, but it's a great way to help individuals who want to rehab a project, want to rehab a house, and they just want that little bit of incentive to help them through the project. But anyway, I talk really fast and I apologize. I don't even think I took up 30 minutes, but I'm happy to answer any questions. And I know this was just a really brief overview, but happy to answer anything if anybody has anything.
Yeah, what questions do you have for Judy? Okay, Jeff has a question in the chat box. Does the project still have to address the but-for clause?
No, that is one thing that is a little bit different.
Okay, good. Is there, for me, is there a minimum or maximum amounts in the application that you consider or look at or require? Obviously the wiring guy wouldn't have been a lot of expense, but
Yeah, no, and that gentleman honestly could have applied for it had he wanted to, but it just really probably wasn't going to seem like it was going to do that much for him. Um, what state law allows, you can't charge more than $50 for an application fee. And that's what the city does charge. We charge $50. That's the maximum you can charge by state statute. So we have a $50 fee for the application. And I told him, I said, well, if you do this and then you do your project and it doesn't move your assessed value up at all, I said, you're going to be out that $50. But if it moves it up, you might get $50 back. And again, it goes for 15 years or um, until you have paid back what you say you are going to spend on the project. So for example, if you say you're going to spend $250,000 on the project, that goes out for 15 years or until it's met that maximum that you were approved for. And most of these are not going to meet that maximum that they've spent.
okay, thank you. Heather asked, does the entire increase in property tax assessed value get returned? She thought it was perhaps a percentage of increase.
Well, it's the difference in what your based assessment is. So your base is when you apply, whatever your taxes are right now are essentially frozen. So if your tax bill goes up, then you're going to get the difference between where it is frozen at and what the new assessed value taxes are. And if there's a difference, my finance manager takes care of all of that, but it's the base value and then whatever your next tax statement comes in at, you pay the full amount and you get the difference between what your base value was to where the increase is.
So for instance, if it was 100,000 base and it went up to 125, the increment is that 25,000.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay, we've got a couple more questions for you here. Carly wanted to know if you could talk a little bit more about the motel example you mentioned. And Carly, you may need to give us a direction here on what you're looking for specifically.
I'll just start talking and then if they tell you, we'll change. So we had a motel in North Platte, very, very old motel. And it encompassed a block. And what they wanted to do with that motel is they wanted to change it to studio apartments. So they wanted to make them studio apartments and then rent those out. So that motel just so happened to be in an area that was not already declared blighted and substandard. So we went through our micro blight process, which again is the same process that you would go through a full blight study, but we just did it on that block. And so once we got that approved, they applied for the micro TIF and were approved, and then they rehabbed that old hotel into individual studio apartments.
Okay. Let us know, Carly, if that needs further explanation. Josh is asking if has the city used microTIF for structures on the National Register of Historic Places or had any potential projects looking at it?
No, not right now. We've had 3 or 4 in our downtown district. But they're in a locally landmark area, but it's not on the National Register. So, and right now we have 1, but we haven't had a lot of conversation with them on the National Register. So no, that has not happened yet.
Okay. And Jeff has a follow-up to Josh's original question. Is there an amount of time that the property must have been on the registry or as long as it is registered? What's the criteria there?
To my knowledge, it's as long as it is registered.
Okay. So a newly registered
Would qualify.
property would be able to apply. So just talk briefly, Judy, if you would, once you get a complete application, kind of what the timeline is or the turnaround time would be. I realize different municipalities, but typically what might
Well,
happen?
the city of North Platte, so with just a simple micro TIF application, so it's already qualified, it's in a blighted and substandard area. All they have to do is the micro TIF. The city of North Platte City Council meets every 2 weeks. So the turnaround time, if the application is 100% good to go, I would say is less than 3 weeks. I believe there's still a timeline on those micro TIF applications. I think you are supposed to, I don't want to say this wrong, but I think you have to act on it in 30 days by state statute. It's either 30 or 60 days. So you have to be really ready to turn those around pretty quickly. I would have to verify with state statute again, but I think you have to act on them in a very, very short time frame. And it's either 30 or 60 days.
The reason I bring that up is I've heard microTIF can be a very beneficial tool for the smaller communities who maybe aren't set up for a huge TIF project to be underway, but could, do parcel here and an area there under microTIF. So
I think microTIF is an absolute amazing thing. It has done a lot of stuff in our downtown area. Like I said, there are 4 projects. The one that I showed you was in our downtown area, and all of those projects were for rehabilitation of your upper floors into living areas. And so it's done a lot of things down there. And then I don't know. I mean, if my house was in a blighted and substandard area and I was going to put on a new roof and add a garage, I would do it in a heartbeat.
okay. So it's not just limited to businesses, as you mentioned, the gentleman with the wiring or a residential property
Yep.
can
No,
apply for it. Okay.
anybody residential can do it also. Yep.
Okay. So Heather wants to know if you can apply prior to acquiring a property.
I would say no. because you have to be the property owner.
Okay. Okay. Or just a follow-up, can you prove that you're in the process of purchasing it through a contract, or does it have to be clearly
Yes.
yours?
I would say probably if you're in like an option to purchase, you could probably do that.
Okay.
It's gonna be, it's really gonna be what your city council will take as proof that you're purchasing it.
Okay.
We've done things before where, like with zoning or things like that, and I would say that it would work the same way, that if you have an option to purchase, as long as the property owner's willing to sign it, you should be good.
Okay. Or consult with your attorney if there are any
Yeah, yeah, look,
doubts.
yeah, ask your attorney for sure, but yeah, I would think you could do it.
Okay. So can smaller communities, sorry, my screen just jumped. Can smaller communities or villages contract with a larger community to administer a micro TIF? So would North Platte contract with somebody around your area as a village or community to help administer their own micro TIF?
I think you could probably get people to do that or communities to do that. The thing is, you're gonna have to have your village on board because your village board has to approve it.
Okay. Okay. For those who maybe don't have the capacity or
Yeah,
administrative staff, so.
Yep.
And Jeff wanted to know, he might have missed this, so he wants to just ask the question, does the city do the microblight study internally?
yes,
Revisit that.
yeah, we do that internally, yes. But when the city attorney and I designed our micro TIF, or a micro blight study application, we designed it in a way to take the majority of the time and effort off of me. Because if I were to go out there and do it by myself, it would take me probably a week straight to get out there, collect all the information, do all the pictures, that sort of thing. So when we set up that application form, we set it up in a way to where we make the applicant do the majority of the work. So they have to do the research. They have to prove that the structure's old enough and it meets. They have to prove that the roads are in bad shape, or, what's happening with the property, what makes it blighted and substandard. And then they go through the list of things that would qualify it and check the ones that they think would qualify it. Once I get all of that information, then I will take it and look at the pictures that they provided, the documents that they provided, and go through that checklist, because ultimately they're going to not check everything that probably does pertain. Like one of the questions is, does this, I'm not going to think of it right off the top of my head, but does this building contribute to delinquency? Well, a lot of people don't check that, but if it's a dilapidated building that's been vacant, yes, it is delinquent. I mean, it will cause delinquency. It's proven to cause problems. And so then what I do is take that application and essentially just write maybe about 3 pages as to why it should be considered blighted and substandard, and attach their application and documentation to the back of that. And that is the blight study for that parcel. So far it's worked pretty good. I think they're pretty good blight studies, but I will tell you that the blight study, the one that was probably the best, was done by an attorney. The client had, or the applicant had, contacted an attorney to do the blight study for them. And so they filled out that application, and that one was the easiest one that I put together to get in front of the board.
Okay. Okay. So I'm the mayor of Huskerville, Judy, and I'm listening today, and I think this is the solution to my problems in my small community. Where do I start? Can I just go out and start? Are there some steps I have to take to bring micro TIF and micro blight to my community? What's my first step here?
What's your first step? Well, pull down the Nebraska state statute. I would say that's going to be my first step. You're going to look at that and read through that. And if you don't understand what it says, grab an attorney and have them look at it. Then your first step is you have to get your city council, your village board, whoever your governing body is on board. You'll probably have to do some education with them to tell them, this is how it's going to work. This is what it is. This is why we think it's good. But you have to have that support. If you don't have the support of your local village board or your city council, then you might as well not even try it. But I think that's where I would start with that. And you can start with just the form that the state provides you. I'm just saying be careful with that because you need some contact information for the people that you're talking to. And you need to have them tell you exactly what you're going to do and what they're going to spend their money on that's going to qualify for TIF expenses. And but yeah, that's where I would start. State statute, grab an attorney, and get your community on board.
Okay, probably through some council or village board discussions, maybe a town hall
Yep.
meeting or two, just
Yep.
to get word out. Okay.
That is how we started. You do have to pass a local ordinance or resolution, however your community does it, that says that you're going to participate in micro TIF. And once you do that, there's several things you can do when you're putting that resolution together or that ordinance together. Our city decided not to limit the number that you do per year. But in smaller communities, if you depend a lot on that tax to fund your community, you might want to limit it a little bit. I was really concerned when my city council said, oh no, we're not going to put a limit on it. We're going to have as many micro TIF projects come through as we want. I thought that was going to be really horrible for me because it's all managed out of my office. But we only get about, 5, 6 a year, which is a manageable amount. But I was afraid when people caught wind of it that we'd have 25 all at the same time. But lucky for me, that
Yeah.
didn't happen, right?
Yeah, I was thinking on a city block, if every parcel did a micro blight, you could have 10, 12, 8,
Yep.
just right there in one city block. So Dane asks, speaking of attorneys, can you require applicants to have legal representation?
I don't remember reading that in the state statute that was a requirement. I suppose you probably could in your resolution or ordinance that you pass to start doing micro TIF. I wouldn't see why you couldn't require that.
Okay. Yeah, what I'm doing is looking for North Platte's microTIF program webpage, and if I can figure out, I will put it in the chat box here so everybody
Okay.
can take a look at that. And Judy, you do have a couple forms that you've shared with us today on your website, correct?
Yes. Yep, they are all on there. The supplemental form and the application for a micro blight are on that webpage.
Okay.
Yep.
Good questions. What else do you want to know from Judy today while we have her captive here? Well, I'm not hearing anything, but maybe Amanda, we can do that. If you want to just give us your email address for anybody who wants the slides, we'd be happy to send that out to all those who request them. So,
And any of the like the processes that you do with a regular TIF, it's very, very similar. It's the same thing.
okay.
The only thing that's different is the city is not on the hook for any money or they don't have to issue a bond. Those are the only things that are different.
So do you know offhand what the assessed value of that before picture, the old grocery store, was compared to what it is now? Because I think
I
that's an
don't.
important.
I wish I would have looked at that. I can maybe tell you what it is now, and maybe I can go back far enough. Let me look here. If you give me just a second, I'll
Yeah.
see if I can get on
Well, and we
the
just had this
website.
conversation recently here in the office, the features plus the benefits. It's great to talk about the features of TIF, but the benefits are the added tax revenue that,
Yes,
comes back to the community. So,
definitely. Okay, let me see. I think. Okay. What is it?
and I'm trying to catch the names of those who want slides. Let me just put my email address in here. And so if you would be so kind as to maybe also drop me a line. And I do have a question of clarification for you here, Judy.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah. Jeff, do you want to just open your microphone and kind of address your question here in the chat box?
Sure. So typically on a TIF, you go through your CRA for redevelopment, goes to the city, it kind of goes back and forth until a decision's made. I would presume that since this is a shorter time period, that they streamlined it to accommodate the 30-day window to just go to the city for a decision with the recommendation from you, unless I'm thinking about this wrong.
No, that is 100% correct. So you essentially bypass the CRA. It's a direct decision from the city council. We do go back to the CRA after. So essentially we get the application, I take a look at it, it goes to city council says yes. We end up eventually taking it back. We take it to the CRA just to have them give their blessing and sign what they consider a promissory note. But that's after the fact. That's essentially after it's been approved by city council. They can go ahead and start their project. We don't worry too much about it. But then we take it to the CRA just so we have that promissory note that says, hey, the city's going to continue to pay, for you to do this TIF project. You're going to continue to get your tax difference back for the next 15 years or until you reach the point of the dollar amount that you've invested in the project.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
The only time the CRA is going to get involved in a micro TIF project in the front of it is if you do a micro blight. And then that has to go through the exact process as a blight and substandard study.
Okay. Good conversation. Any last questions for Judy before I ask her one more question and we wrap up? So Judy, my final question for you as we wrap up here. What is one piece of advice you would want to leave with those who've participated today based on the topic?
I think my biggest piece of advice is if you're going to do this, educate, educate, educate. And that's educate your community because there are still people in the city of North Platte that come in and say, okay, when can I apply for this loan? And so I think education is the biggest thing with this. Nobody's going to get rich off of a micro TIF project, but they do get a little bit of help to alleviate the pain of borrowing money to fix your place up. So education is the biggest thing.
Wise words for sure. So, well, thank you, Judy. As we begin to conclude, Howard, would you want to slip to the next slide, please? I'll just remind you that today's webinar, if you thought you heard something but you're not sure, or you want to refresh on what Judy has shared, today's webinar as well as past webinars will be available on our website, HomeNE.us. So you can check that out. That will, today's webinar will probably be up the first of the week. And just a reminder, we do get together the third Thursday of every month, except for December. And next month, we're going to be joined by Melissa Douche and Heather Janilevich. Heather, if you're still with us, I hope I did justice to your name. She's with Brass Cannon Restorations, and Melissa and Heather are going to be talking with us about housing activities that are underway there in Loop City. So kind of excited. I was there about a year ago and it was just so fresh and fun. And they've got a new child care center and just a lot of things going on there. So looking forward to hearing from Melissa and Heather. So again, Judy, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to present on a really important and relevant topic to our communities. We don't have a lot of tools in the toolbox, but we have one here that we can implement and use to help our communities. So thank you
Great
so
one.
much. So
No problem. You're welcome.
yeah. Any last thoughts from anyone? I do see Amanda said education is very important in our chat box. So echoing what Judy has said. So any last thoughts from anyone? Well, if not, thank you to all of you and have a great rest of your day. And we'll see you in September. Thank you, Judy.